Welcome to Second Parish in Hingham. My name is Karen Delano, and I'd like to welcome our old friend Ken Reed Brown to the pulpit today. I have a few announcements. The book group is going to be reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and we'll be meeting on March 17th after church. And there will be a ladies' luncheon on Friday, March 1st at noon here in Cushing Hall. Are there any other announcements? Lisa, come on up.
Okay, so we are getting closer and closer to the art show. Last year around this time, I got up and made a call for help. I've gone around and I've passed out volunteer opportunities for you. So we're seeking volunteers for several committees. The idea is that nobody is really working alone and nobody feels like this overwhelming responsibility for any one thing, but if we kind of divide and conquer, it makes the whole thing a little bit more manageable. So if you could take a look at the sheet that I passed out to you, obviously the major thing is events, and we have a couple big events. We're having a Hayden concert in here, which is a piano concert on that piano over there with Ira Bross. And Gayla knows more about his bio if you want to talk to her at coffee hour, but that will be the Saturday night, so obviously we want to have a very welcoming reception for that. Opening night reception and artist appreciation is a big deal, and then the other ones, kids activities is another one to take on, but again, you know, bigger events like that require more people that you're working with as a team, and it always makes it more enjoyable. So that's the big one, is events, but there's other things too. I would love to have somebody who was in charge of setup and breakdown so that, you know, they sent out the emails, organized the time, and we have specific instructions for that. And also last year we had a fantastic Sparkle and Shine committee, and I think it's still sparkling and shining from all of the work that they did last year, but we need a little bit of a refresh every year, indoors and outdoors. So we had a day of service indoors where we did some like touch-up painting and cleaning in spots that sometimes get missed, and then outdoors where we did all kinds of weeding and gardening and raking and cleaning up, and everything just looked fantastic. So see me or Gayla at coffee hour if you want to talk about these at all, and I will be having an email blast sent out as well this week for more. All right, thank you.
Are there any other announcements? All right, then let our service begin.
That's a pretty clear finish point. Time to get up. Good morning. And let's all say a big good morning to everyone online, particularly to Stephanie, who we're pretty sure is watching, but to everybody who's out there in that other land, cyberland. Let's say good morning. Yeah. We have on this wintry morning gathered from many directions by many paths, each of us with our own share of joy or concern, or for some, sorrow. We've gathered on this day to reflect on all our days gone by, days yet to come, gathered to recollect who we most truly are in our deepest soul of souls, who we are wandering this world of joy and sorrow together. Gathered, each of us part of the whole of us, and so never alone. May this time together remind us that we are never alone. We have one another, even at a distance. We can reach out, share a card, a note, a call, simply knowing silently within that we are never alone. May this morning we be reminded once again that we are not alone as we've gathered in the spirit of love. We're going to sing. Mark tells me you've maybe not sung this hymn before, but I invite you to sing it as if it's an old favorite. Over my head. It's not hard. Sing as if you've been singing it for years. Mark will play it through, then we'll sing together. It's number 30 in your hymn book. Please rise, embody your spirit, and sing with spirit. I especially appreciate that you very quickly got that rest in the last stanza. It's the coolest part of the song. Thank you for singing. Our chalice lighter this morning is, I believe, Nancy Trolin. Nancy, if you'd come forward and light our chalice. And as you do, we will find in our orders of worship the Second Parish Covenant, which we are invited to read and say together. With love for each other and with respect for each person's search for truth, we unite in the Spirit of Jesus for the worship of God and the service of our neighbors. I would like to invite the young people, really anyone who would like to come forward for a time for all ages. Tell me if the guitar starts tipping over, would you? Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? You just say out loud, doing great, or I'm having a tough day. Let me hear you.
Tough day.
Right. All right, so a mix. You know, every day is different. That's why we have joys and concerns later on in the service. Sometimes we're having a hard day, sometimes we're having a tough day. But we're all together, and it's great to see you all of you. Are you excited to go back to school tomorrow? Yeah, not whatsoever. Did you have a good week? Did you have fun? Good, glad to hear it. We had some little ones at our house all week long, and it was great fun. Then they left, and we're lonely. But now we've got you. So I want to ask you some questions to begin with. I'm wearing a different stole. These are called stoles this morning from what I've worn in past weeks. And so there are different symbols, little pictures called symbols. And I want to know if you recognize any of them. Anybody know what this one is at the bottom? Yes. It's the Star of David, right, and it's a symbol of the Jewish religion. So each one of these symbols represents a different religion. Now, what's this one? Yes. It's the cross. What religion does this represent, the cross? It's the religion of Jesus, that's right, Christianity it's called. And this one you may not know, and it's not a universal symbol, but it's a star and a crescent, and sometimes is for... That's right, Islam. Good for you. And this is all of us, right? What's this? It's not a religion. It's just the earth, which we love. Now, life, that's right. Now, on the other side, I'm just going to tell you, these are symbols. Anybody recognize this one at the top? Yeah.
Peace.
It is kind of a symbol of peace, and it's called the symbol of Taoism, and it's got black and white, and a little white there, a little black there, and it is a very peaceful symbol. I think I know the one you're thinking of, too. These other ones are of Hinduism, the Wheel of Life, and Buddhism. It's a lotus coming out of the mud. And then up here, do you recognize this? What is it? Yes?
Chalice.
The chalice. What religion does the chalice represent? Everybody? Unitarian Universal, that's right. Now, one of the things I love about this stole, and it was given to me by my church where I was the minister for many years, Old Ship Church, there it is at the bottom. How about that? And it represents all the religions, not all the religions, but many of the religions of the world, and they're woven together. See how they're kind of strung together with the rope? Because in the end, we are all one human family, right? One family under one sky, and there's the earth. One family, not just people. Who else is in the family of life other than people? Plants and animals. That kind of covers it. So one family under one sky, and on the back it's all green, representing all that. And there's some other things, but I mostly wanted you to see these symbols of all the religions, but all woven together. And we're going to sing a song that's all about how we're woven all together under one sky. Maybe some of you know this song. It's called Under One Sky. It's got a chorus. It comes around. And then it's got a part where I sing a line and you sing the same thing right back at me. For example, we're people, and you say, people. You say it louder than that, though. We're people. Right, okay. That'll come soon. The chorus is, we're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. That's it. You sing it again. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. Sing it again. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. Well, we're people. And we're animals. We're flowers. And we're birds in flight. Birds in flight. Oh, we're people, and we're animals, and we're flowers. Now all together, and birds in flight. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. Well, we're Jewish, and we're Christian. We're Muslim, and we're you used to. Can you say it? We're you used to. Oh, we're Hindu, and we're Buddhist. We're Sikhs. And Unitarian Universalist too. Let me hear you. And Unitarian. Now here's your last chance to sing the chorus. We're all a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one more time. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. Well, you may not have Over My Head going through your head all day long, but maybe you'll have Under One Sky, and that's not a bad thing. And we're going to sing one more time in order to say so long to all of you for the morning. We're going to sing you out. Mark, let's sing them out. Go. Great, kids. We have a responsive reading that's printed in your program, and Karen will help with your response so that everybody at home can hear as well. This comes from an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson titled The Oversoul. It's an essay that I always invite people to read right after they've read Self-Reliance, because Emerson, I'm in danger of giving another sermon here, but when he writes about self-reliance, he's not talking about, oh, it's all for me. It's all about extreme individuality. He's talking about reliance on our higher self, the Oversoul. So here from the Oversoul, it's in our hymn book as well, but we've got it printed in front of us. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought.
That the highest dwells with us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds.
Within us is the soul of the whole,
The wise silence, the universal beauty.
to which every part and particle is equally related.
The eternal one.
When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius.
When it breathes through our will, it is virtue.
when it flows through our affections.
It is love.
Thank you. As we listen to the next piece of music, you're invited to fill out cards with a joy or a sorrow or concern. The joys can go on yellow cards, the concerns or sorrows on the blue cards, but more important is that you write what's in your heart on whatever color you choose. If you would hold up your cards, and ushers will pick them up as we go along. I said yellow, I guess it's pink. A concern for our friend Dorothy, who fell in his South Shore Hospital. Prayers for her recovery. Is this Dorothy who's 90th birthday was last week. Oh, my goodness. We send prayers for Dorothy's quick recovery over at South Shore Hospital. I am grateful that on my way to church this morning, when the person 2 cars in front of me stopped short, neither I nor the other car hit them. I'll bet they're grateful too. I am also grateful for all of you being in my life, those here in this room and those at home watching online. Thank you. Well, that's beautiful. And there's a little heart. Well, we know that though there are but 2 written joys and concerns, there may be others in our hearts, and we hold them for one another. We hold one another in our hearts. May we sing in that spirit. May we join our hearts and minds in a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, may we feel you in our hearts as we pause, quieting our bodies and minds as best we can, allowing our breathing to slow, to settle us into deeper peace for these moments and beyond. As we remember that with every breath, we are linked to all life, shared with one another, with all living beings. One life, one family, one reality beyond naming. So natural then, from this place of inner quiet, to pray, to hear the yearning of our hearts, the yearnings that come from a place of compassion for all beings, to and from the God of many names, God of our hearts. Prayers that all will be safe and free from harm. Prayers that justice and peace may grow in this world of ours. Prayers especially for those suffering beyond imagining in the midst of war, whether in Gaza, in Ukraine, and all too many other places. Prayers that peace will come, that justice will be served. All as each of us hold our unique personal prayers for those we love. Together in this community for healing, for Dorothy, for Stephanie, for others in the midst of trial of whatever kind. Prayers for health, for safety, for all. As our meditations and prayers continue in shared silence. Our shared spoken prayer this morning comes from the ancient tradition of Hinduism, as printed in your order of worship. A prayer for peace. And we speak it together. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Om Shanti. Each week in our congregation and congregations everywhere, an offering is taken, an offering to support and further the ministries of the congregation, knowing the importance, as we each do or we wouldn't be here, of the ministry of this church. May we give as generously as we are able. Our morning offering will now be given and received. A reading this morning comes from an anthology of readings. It's titled Perennial Wisdom for the Spiritually Independent. That would be maybe most of us. It's by Rami Shapiro, published about 10 years ago. The term perennial wisdom is sometimes interchangeable with the term perennial philosophy. Perhaps some of you have heard these terms. So he writes, the term perennial philosophy refers to a fourfold realization. One, there is only one reality. Call it, among other names, God, Mother, Tao, Allah, Dharmakaya, Brahman, or Great Spirit. And this one reality is the source and substance of all creation. Two, that while each of us is a manifestation of this reality, most of us identify with something much smaller. That is, our culturally conditioned individual ego. Three, that this identification with the smaller self gives rise to needless anxiety, unnecessary suffering, and cross-cultural competition and violence. And four, that peace, compassion, and justice naturally replace anxiety, needless suffering, competition, and violence when we realize our true nature as a manifestation of this singular reality. The great sages and mystics of every civilization, he continues, throughout human history have taught these truths in the language of their time and culture. So the rest, namely my sermon, is commentary basically on that passage. Now, like some of you, I came of age during the 1960s and early 70s, a time in our nation, as many will remember, of great upheaval, division, as well as activism, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, all amidst continuing fears of nuclear annihilation, assassinations, President Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Bobby Kennedy. It was also a time, for many, particularly a little bit later in the 60s and into the 70s, of spiritual exploration and awakening, so-called New Age, fresh explorations of Buddhism, which had first come into this country. Well, that's a long story in itself, but anyway. Yoga, transcendental meditation. How many of you got your mantra in transcendental meditation at one time or another? A few of us did. And much else. As for me, I was not at the front lines of activism, but I marched and rallied during those years in college and so on. But I was also among those who was who were drawn to spiritual exploration. For example, majoring in philosophy to see if I could get the answers to some of life's big questions. Why are we here? What's it all about? Where are we going? Is there a God? And if so, what's the nature of God? 4 years of philosophy, maybe I'd get some answers. In addition to reading, and reading some more, I learned some yoga. I practiced the rudiments of meditation, eventually transcendental meditation. But we had one of my professors of religion invited a monk from Thailand to come and teach us meditation. We're seated on a rug in the basement of one of the dorms, and his instruction, pretty much the complete instruction was, sit, now I will ring the bell, and we will sit. He rang the bell. But it was a beginning. It was a beginning. Sore knees and everything. He said a little more as time went on. Further, it was helpful to me at that time that about 10 years earlier, my parents had joined a Unitarian Universalist congregation where free inquiry and exploration is expected, not only accepted, but expected. So it was encouraged, in other words, in our new faith, in the faith that we share here. Well, with all this exploration, did I find any answers to share with you this morning? Well, at the very least, some guideposts along the way, touchstones for the journey of life. Interestingly, for example, if I had to take a dozen books to the proverbial desert island, just about all of them would be books I read back then, 50 and more years ago. Emerson, Thoreau, Walt Whitman, the Dhammapada from Buddhism, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Gospel of Matthew with the Sermon on the Mount. That would be pretty good reading on a desert island. Now, what has been the appeal of these texts, these particular texts? Well, in varied ways, from Emerson's Oversoul, which we heard earlier a little bit, to the Upanishads, to the parables of Jesus, all of these, the Tao Te Ching. Oh yeah, that's another one I'd have. They all include expressions of what is known as the perennial philosophy or perennial wisdom. A philosophy or wisdom that rang true for me there and then as it still does today. Now, I touched on this a couple of weeks ago when I was with you, so a little more exploration of perennial wisdom this morning. We heard Rami Shapiro's description in his words of the perennial wisdom or philosophy. My own paraphrase goes something like this. It's similar, but our individual self, the self that has a name, roles, personality, sometimes known as ego, not in a pejorative sense, just a name, ego, for that individual self that we are, our singleness, just a reality, part of the reality. But this individual self, name and role and so on is a manifestation of a larger reality. In fact, the largest reality of all, known by many names. God, Allah, Brahman, Tao, Spirit, Source. Many names which are only pointers because the name is not the reality. God, I don't think this will be news to you, God is not God's name. Beyond names. Likewise, all those other words. The Hindus, particularly in the tradition of Hinduism known as Vedanta, which means the end of the Vedas. The Vedas are the sacred scriptures of Hinduism. So Vedanta is the end, the meaning, the purpose of the Vedas. And they came later in time as well. Well, in Vedanta, from Hinduism, they put it this way, affirming that Atman, the higher self within, is equivalent to Brahman, the world self, we might say, or oversoul in Emerson's language. That art thou. The Sanskrit, I know about 6 words of Sanskrit, but the Sanskrit is tat tavam asi. That art thou. That larger reality, Brahman, that's who you are, in addition to your manifestation as an individual. That, our higher self, Emerson's oversoul. Then this wisdom goes on to affirm that we can, through certain practices, whether meditation or yoga, for example, go beyond knowing in some abstract sense that we're part of something larger. I mean, we can know this in our heads, right? But these practices help us to go beyond just the knowing that we're part of a manifestation of a larger whole, to experiencing ourselves as part of this larger reality. And yet further affirms the perennial wisdom, this realization that our individual self is part of the larger whole. It's the most important thing we can do in our lives, to realize this more and more fully. And why? Because among other reasons, to the extent that we realize, experience, even taste, this double nature of our reality as an individual and as part of it all, realizing the unity of life, to the extent that we do, we will live with more inner peace, even joy, and outwardly we will live more kindly, with a yet deeper compassion, and with more love. Conversely, living, speaking, and acting with more kindness, even if we sometimes have to remind ourselves to do that, these are practices too, which help us to realize who we most truly are. It's a beautiful circle, in other words. But still, is this all true? Is it the way things are, or is it just wishful thinking? A sort of illusion to make us better, to make us feel better in the midst of what is actually a random, meaningless universe. Well, I, for one, do find it, this message, this wisdom, healing and inspiring, this affirmation that beneath the veneer of our individuality, personality, worries, that we are more than our personality and our worries are part of one another, of the whole, intimately interwoven, this network of mutuality, as Dr. King put it. But finding all this message to be healing and inspiring might be suggestive of its truth, but is it QED? Does it make it true? Absolutely. After all, wishful thinking and illusions maybe can make us feel better too. Yet beyond the words and ideas, I believe that all of us, at one time or another, sometimes frequently, sometimes rarely, get at least a taste, experience this reality, a taste of it anyway. Might be simpler than the words might seem to make it. For example, one morning years ago, I woke up feeling kind of creaky and tired. Never happened to you, right? We all have those mornings. I woke up with immediately going through my long to-do list that the day would not be long enough for me to complete. Ever have a day like that? I did a few physical therapy exercises to tend to slightly warn this is and that's. In other words, I began my day pretty much encased in my skin and bones with my worries and concerns, my individual self, ego. Then I headed out the door because I knew I should, for a short run anyway, in the midst of gently falling snow as it happened. And once my legs loosened up, I found myself unbidden. I wasn't trying to have a mystical experience. I found myself just experiencing that I was part of. I disappeared in a way into the scene, into my neighborhood, into the falling snow, and so on. No fancy words. The I just disappeared for moments anyway into this larger scene. You've probably had similar experiences in nature or perhaps other places. The individual self for a moment melts into, and you're just there, present. Now, another experience on that same day as it happened, when I happened to be working on the first iteration of this sermon, which I can never preach the same sermon twice. This is a little different from a few years ago. But on that same day, I had another experience. It turns out was related. It was during that terrible winter storm in Texas where millions had lost electricity, and we saw pictures on the news or in the papers of families cold, freezing, worried about the quality of their water and so on. We saw those pictures and I didn't know anybody in Texas, but I just felt for them, felt compassion for their situation, heartache for those suffering. Just as these days, we probably most or all of us feel quite naturally, even more deeply, poignantly, feel a heart-rending compassion for the suffering children we see on the news in Gaza and elsewhere in too many war zones. We just feel this compassion. We've never met, maybe we'll never meet these children and their parents, but we feel. Now, why do we feel compassion for people we've never met? We all do, right? Because we are part and parcel of one another. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, the poet John Donne said. We are all kin, and this sense of compassion for someone we don't even know comes from that inner, deeper knowing that we are all kin, all part of the larger world of life and of nature. So whether an experience in the midst of a lightly falling snow, or feeling the compassion for others, reminders, tastes, seems to me. So yes, there are spiritual practices that can encourage us to have this experience, meditation and so on, this experience that we are more than our individual self. I think it also helps just to notice those times when we get a taste in nature or in the midst of compassion for someone or for an animal. Talked about turtles a few weeks ago, right? Suffering turtles. Experiences we all have, as I said, whether we name them mystical or some highfalutin way. Oh, I've had this mystical experience. No, it's ordinary. Aldous Huxley, he's known mostly for his novels, but in the 1940s he wrote put together a several hundred-page compilation, an anthology of writings from various traditions that he titled the Perennial Philosophy, outlining and illustrating in depth the ideas I've been touching on this morning. Then, near the end of his life, someone asked him what life advice, here's this great scholar and writer, what life advice can you give to folks? And he said, it's a little embarrassing that after 45 years of research and study, the best advice I can give people is to be a little kinder to each other. He, of course, shouldn't have been embarrassed. His journey had simply been something along the lines of T.S. Eliot. As T.S. Eliot expressed it, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. For Huxley, after his 45 years of research, rediscovering the kindness that perhaps he'd learned at his mother or father's knees, kindness as the ground floor also of the perennial wisdom. Maybe my journey's been a little bit like that, perhaps yours too. Well, as many of us experienced back in those 60s and 70s, all of us are now living once again in a time of division, anger, polarization. I hardly need remind us. So one reason I preach this sermon again this morning is because I fervently believe that we all need more than ever this message pointing us to an experience of life's unity beneath appearances, the experience of unity from which love grows. It's been the theme of the month, whether from Danielle last week and my sermons earlier. We urgently need this message to inspire us, seems to me, to be among the healers in this world of too many divisions, to be among this generation of activists in whatever ways we can, striving to help our communities, our nation, the world to be more peaceful, to be filled with more justice, and to be more ecologically sustainable. We don't need to do something big or all-encompassing to somehow solve all the world's problems, heal all suffering. We couldn't, even if we tried. This yearning to heal it all, to do it all, the yearning itself is a taste, friends. It's a taste. The yearning comes from the oversoul. It comes from that place of knowing that we're related, the God within that place of love. So as individual manifestations, we're simply called to do what's in front of us to do what we can where we are with what we got. Right? Offer the kind word to the next person, the smile, the good deed, however modest, one way or another, sharing a unifying rather than divisive message. Because we're part of one big team. I may have said this a couple weeks ago too. A huge team of helpers and healers. I surely know that I need to remind myself of all this frequently. Maybe you do too. Remembering as we do whatever we can do, that every word and every deed ripples. It all ripples. Never stops rippling into the larger family of life and love. Echoing the Isha Upanishad and those words printed in your program, as we see ourselves in all creatures in ourselves, in our hearts. So it is, so may it always be. Blessed be, and amen. Going to sing It Sounds Along the Ages, one of the old standard hymns in our hymn book, number 187, a reminder that the messages of all the faiths are universal. 187, It Sounds Along the Ages. I'm going to be away for a few weeks. I won't see you all for a while, till near the end of March. I'll miss being here with you. I'll leave you for now with these words. Grateful for the blessings in our lives. Grateful for the manifest blessings in our lives. May we turn as we leave this morning and as we live each day, and as best we are able, make of our lives a blessing to one another, to our neighbors, to all life. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.